Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. So, in today's video I'm going to be showing you all the books that I read in January. Okay, so I just want to say sorry if I sound a bit weird or a bit different. I have been really ill for the past over a week. That's probably also why I look a bit red in the face. So I'm sorry if I sound different. I just wanted to let you guys know. So, I read 21 books in January, which is actually quite good. I didn't really think January would be a good reading year for me, but it turned out to be okay. Now, at first I was disappointed because I wasn't doing well at the beginning. But then I thought to myself, I shouldn't be disappointed because I should just be enjoying reading. It shouldn't be about the goal. And once I had that mindset, I had fun and I was just reading because I wanted to read and not because of the goal. Okay, so the first book that I read in January was Regretting You by Colleen Hoover. This I ended up rating 2 stars, which is quite shocking for me with a Colleen Hoover book. Normally I enjoy them and I rate them quite high. This one just wasn't for me. I don't know what it was, to be honest. It also took me quite a long time to read, which I wasn't expecting, because one day I decided to pick it up because I thought, oh, it's quite short, I've heard good things about it, so I'm going to pick it up. But this wasn't the case for me. Personally, this is my least favourite Colleen Hoover book I've read so far, and I've read quite a lot of them. I don't know if it's because, it's quite different from what she normally writes. It was about a mother and a daughter, and, their relationship and stuff, so I don't know if it was, I don't know. It wasn't my thing, which is okay. Okay, the next book I read was called Sam and Sadie's Fake Wedding. So this was a quick read. It was more of a novella. I rated it 2 stars. This was something that I was listening to on the way back from a trip that I went to, and I finished it, the whole trip, and it was an interesting read for the while I was in the car for hours. It was good, but it wasn't the best. It wasn't my favourite, and there wasn't really much to it. Personally, that's what I think. So, it was a 2 star. The next one is Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So this book you actually can't get in a physical copy. All of Taylor books have a physical copy. Obviously I can't get this one in physical copy because you can't. But I did read it on my Kindle and I rated it 3 stars. It was actually really interesting and I loved the fact that it was all written in letter form and everything. I did really enjoy it. I was going to rate it 4 stars, but then I thought it's quite high for a novella, and the fact that it was all written in letters, yeah, I love that. And it was done really well. I actually really enjoyed it. But 4 stars was quite high for the length of it, and I felt like more could have been added. It could have. So something was missing. I can't tell you what, but I feel like a bit more could have been added. But what we got, I loved, and it was really fun and very quick, obviously, because it's a novella, and I really enjoyed it. Okay, the next one is 5 Survive by Harley Jackson. So this book I rated 4.75 stars. I love this book so much. If you want my thoughts, if you want to see me reading this, there's actually a reading vlog on my channel that you can check out. But I have no words for this. This is probably my new favourite thriller, mystery kind of book. I really enjoyed this. I read it really quickly. It got me out of my reading slump that I was kind of going in. After this book I kind of went in one again, which is weird, but I love this book. There's about 6 friends and they are going on a school trip kind of thing, and they all decide to go in an RV. They all decide to drive there instead of doing what the rest of the school was doing and taking a plane. And on the way there they end up getting stranded, and they've got to figure out the secret between them of who's got the secret and why someone on the outside wants to kill one of them and who it is, basically, out of the 6 of them. Very interesting. Loved it. I did not explain that the best. I did not do this book justice, but please just read it. So good. After that book I read The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. So I read Better Than a Movie by Lynn Painter. Love that book. Rated it 4.75 stars. Then I decided to read this one. Now I do kind of wish that I saved it for this month, February, because it's all about Valentine's Day and around that, and obviously February 14th is Valentine's Day, but I read it in January, and wow, this is so good. I rated it 4 stars. It was really interesting. I read it in one sitting, which is crazy to me. I mean, it is short. So this is about Emily, and I think his name was Nick, and Emily she has to live the same day, Valentine's Day, over, and she has like different experiences and everything, and she's got to figure out like why this is happening. And you wouldn't think it would be interesting, or you think it would be quite boring because you are reading about the same day happening over and over again. But it was so interesting, and it was fun figuring out like why it was all happening, and it was just very fun, and I highly recommend. Then after that, I read Accidentally Amy by Lynn Painter. Now this I picked up not realising that it was Lynn Painter, but I read it. It was fun, and like, you know, it was good for a novella, and I did also read this in a reading vlog. I did rate it 2.5 stars, which is quite shocking for me considering it's a Lynn Painter book and I love Lynn Painter's writing. But it was kind of like cringy at times, and it was more of like something that was fun than something that, you know, was supposed to be taken seriously. I did hear that it was self-published, I believe, and I heard people say that there was like spelling mistakes, punctuation mistakes, but I personally didn't see any. I don't know if like that's been fixed or anything. I read it on my Kindle, so, you know, I'm not sure, but I personally didn't see any unless I just missed them. But yeah, it was a fun read, and I did enjoy my time, but there was times where I just got a bit bored as well. Like, I think it was like in the middle-ish, and then near the end bit kind of, I got bored, and then like right at the end it got a bit more interesting. But yeah, it was good for what it was. Okay, the next book I read was a reread, and this was A Sweet Temptation by Cora Riley. So obviously, because I was in a reading slump, I decided to reread this book, and obviously it was a 5-star read because I wouldn't reread something that wasn't like one of my favourites. I read this for the first time in 2021, reread it for a video that I posted a while ago, which is 5 books in 5 days. That was a fun video to film. So yeah, I love this book. If you want more of my thoughts, you can check out that video. Also in that video, I read One of Those Flings, and this was a short audiobook, which was fun listen. I actually rated it 3 stars. It was good for an audiobook, and also it was short, so like a novella. It was good, and there was quite a lot of detail in it, and it was very interesting, and I do recommend. After that, I read Bridesmaids, and I rated this 2 stars. It wasn't a favourite. It was also just a quick read, and it was also for a video which hasn't actually come out yet, so because I got ill and everything, and I haven't been able to edit it or post it, so that should be coming to you soon, but I did read it. The next one is They're Vicious Darlings. So this I rated 2 stars. This was the 3rd book in the series, and first book, when I read the first book, I said in a video, if I remember correctly, that I wasn't going to continue with the series, but I decided to. And it was because, like, I don't know what it is, but it's, how do I explain it? It's weird to me, and it's that like, it's not a favourite, I don't enjoy, like, I wouldn't recommend, but it's just something that I just like to read. Does that even make any sense? Do you guys know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it is, but it was fun. Then I read Dismount by Lucia Franco. I was originally waiting for the audiobook for this, but then I just couldn't wait any longer, even though I found out the audiobook is now coming out, like, very soon, which I'm kind of mad about, because if I only waited a little while later. But I finished the series, I'm very happy that I did, and I feel like I enjoyed it more because I read it without the audiobook, so I'm not too mad. But I just love listening, just like this series. I can always get the audiobook for my second round of reread of the series, because there is going to be one, because I love it so much. But anyway, so Dismount I rated 5 stars, loved it. It was like the last book in the series, and it was very sad to like end the series and, you know, finally say goodbye in a sense, but it was such an enjoyable read, and it was such a good ending. I love seeing like the way it ended and how everything worked out for both Kova and Ria. It was amazing. And then after that I read Out of Bounds, which is kind of like the behind the scenes and extra stuff, and you even get a interview between Kova and Lucia Franco, the author, so we love to see that. And the way this ended, like it ended with the interview, spoilers, but you know, the way Lucia Franco made like it end, it was so sad. I felt like crying. I don't want to say anything without spoiling it, so I'm not going to, but it was amazing. Like, I loved it so much. Then I decided to read some Christmas books, so I read the 2nd and 3rd book in the, no, what's the series called? It's called 3 Bows, 2 Bells, and 1 Brother, Best Friend, and A Partridge and a Pregnancy. So the 2nd book in the series I rated 4 stars, and the 3rd book in the series I rated 3.5 stars. It was fun. I love the series so much, and it's definitely like one of my favourite Christmas book series. They're all novellas, which is also fun, and I loved. So yeah, I had a great time. Then I read Lessons in Sin. Now, if you've read this book, you know how taboo it is. It's very taboo, but also some things I didn't expect to happen in a book kind of like this also happen. But I suppose it makes sense once you like learn how important Tinsley's family is and like what their role is and stuff. So I suppose it makes sense. But I was not expecting it. It was kind of like a twist, if that makes sense. I don't know, but I did enjoy it. I rated it 4 stars, which I wasn't expecting. It did take me a little while to get into it. Like, I was enjoying it, but I didn't think it would be like a favourite or anything. So it did take me a little while to get into it, but it was fun and I loved it. And I read it in like 2 sittings, which is crazy. After that, I read Tortured Whispers. So this book is very taboo, and if you don't like the taboo kind of books, I wouldn't recommend this. But this is a very dark book, so like I do recommend you check the trigger warnings if you are going to read this. I didn't, which was a very, very big mistake, because I was really not in the right headspace for this. Like, I started reading it and I had to wait a couple of, like, I started reading it at like the beginning of January and I had to wait weeks to actually like pick it up again. And even when I did, it was still not the right time. It's really hard. So about Brooklyn, and she is suffering from depression and a bit of anxiety, but it's mainly based on the depression, and trigger warning, like a big trigger warning. But yeah, there's a lot more to it, but that's the thing I want to warn you guys about, because it's very, very triggering. Like, this book is very triggering, so just, if you're going to read it, please be careful with your mental health. Then after that, I needed like a light and fun read. Tease by Melanie Harlow. So this brightened up my mood because it's not dark at all. And obviously I read like a lot of, not dark, but more like taboo and stuff, and I needed something fun. So Tease, I decided to read that because I love the series so much, if you don't know, and they're nice, quick, like easy reads. I finished them quite fast. Like Tease, I finished in 1 sitting. Loved it. So I did actually rate this 3.5 stars, which might be shocking because of how much I'm saying I loved it. But compared to all the other books in the series, that's what I was doing with it. I was comparing them, which is probably isn't good, but that's what I was doing. Then I read A Living Nightmare by Darren Shan. So this is like an unexpected read for me. It was fun to read, and I am going to continue with the series. I only started reading it because I borrowed I actually have them here because I borrowed these books from my aunt. So obviously the first couple of books I don't have, but I've got them on my Kindle, so I'm currently reading them. And then like this is like book 7 to 9, you know. Love this. So I am continuing with the series because it is very interesting. I'm currently on the 2nd book, which, you know, is fun. And I've got all the audiobooks as well, and listening to it on audiobook is just more fun for some reason. I don't know. Love it. I did rate it 2 stars, which is quite shocking, but it's just because it's not something I normally read, and there were some things that like I found confusing and a bit like chaotic and stuff, but I think it's just because it's the first book and you're kind of getting into it. I think it's there's 13 books, I believe, in the series, so, you know, it's quite a lot. Then I read Forever Interrupted by Tejan Kadreed. Wow. So I rated this 4 stars. It was such a fun read. Again, I read it in 1 sitting. I did a lot of reading in 1 sitting in January, which is crazy to me because normally I don't have many in a month, or any at all, that I read in 1 sitting. But this book is so good, but so heartbreaking, because it's all about grief. And you are seeing this girl Elsie go through the grief of losing her husband. And then you're also seeing, like, because Elsie and her husband Ben, they met and got married really fast. I think it was in the span of, like, I want to say a couple of months, like a month. And they was married 2 weeks when Ben unfortunately got run over by a truck. And his mother ended up turning up to the hospital and didn't know that Ben had got married. So when Elsie is like, I'm his wife, and like taking his stuff, like his phone and everything that was on him. His mother kind of like lashes out a bit, being like, I don't know who you are. So yeah, you are exploring the grief. You've seen her go through the grief, and even the mother, and the way it ends is so lovely and heartbreaking, but it's just so good, and I do highly recommend this. The next book I read was The Risk by Elle Kennedy. Finally, I got to reading this. I rated this 3.5 stars, which is lower than the rest of, like, even the off-campus series and then the first book in the Barry series. It's probably quite shocking, because in all the off-campus series books and the first one I rated 5 stars. This one wasn't my favourite out of the, both series. So this is the second book in the Barry series. It wasn't my favourite. This is about Jake and Brenna, I think her name was. And Brenna is the coach's daughter of, school, and then Jake is obviously a hockey player, but they're on 2 different teams. And so obviously, like, it's not taboo. Because they're like different teams and everything. And Brenna has like a tough past and everything, which you learn about. The thing is this is low because the way Elle Kennedy made the men talk about women in this book specifically, I did not like at all. I have heard that people don't like the way Elle Kennedy writes about women, or just writes in general, or says anything about anything, because she goes about it the wrong way. I never saw that in the off-campus series or The Chase personally, but this one I saw a bit more. But I think it's because there was a character in this that, didn't like women, thought bad about women and everything. So I don't know if I just saw it wrong, read it wrong or anything. But yeah, that was that book for me. And the last book that I read in January was Slammed by Colleen Hoover. This book I rated 3 stars. Again, quite low for me considering it's a Colleen Hoover book. But I read this in one sitting yesterday, which was the 31st of January. Read it in one sitting, loved it, and I'm going to be moving on to the second one. So this book is about Laken and Will, and Laken has just moved in, like, to a new town with her little brother and her mother, and then that's when she meets her neighbour Will, and they start to like talk and become friends. And obviously their little brothers have become friends because Will has a little brother as well that he's like raising, and so Laken and Will are becoming friends. They even go on a date. They start to kind of fall in love with each other. Then something shocking happens. Laken kind of like runs into him at school, and she's like, what are you doing here? And turns out Will is her teacher, and so they are going through the trouble of like, oh my gosh, we have to stop this. But it's very hard because obviously like they fell in love with each other and everything, and it's their story of that. So it's very interesting. Now it's 3 stars for me because the way Laken is very immature. Considering she's 18. Right, she's 18, Will is 21. Considering she's 18 and in high school, like almost like finishing high school, and she's so immature. Like, she goes around slamming doors when she doesn't like something. Like, I'm sorry, well, and also there's a scene in here where she gets detention. The way she acts in a serious moment with her like new friend, in a serious moment, that whole scene made me cringe. In a serious moment, the way she was acting, like, no thank you. Also, you find, I can't say this without it being a spoiler. So Laken and her little brother finds out that their mother is ill, and dying from the C word, and the way that Colleen Hoover makes them talk about it, I don't know, I don't like that. Like, they make it, I don't know. And the little brother, the way he acts when he finds out, no child, even though I think he was like 9 years old, no child would act like that. And like, I don't know, I didn't agree with it personally. But yeah, so it is a 3 star for me though, because I did like the storyline, but it was just those 2 reasons that like I couldn't. So those are all the books that I read in January. This is quite a long video, but I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe if you want. It's free. I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.